everybody. So welcome to our March version of the vlog. This is our third one?
Third one.
Yeah. And we're very late getting it out, and that is entirely on me. I have no idea where March went at all. Today's March 28th. To me, it should be like the 5th. I honestly have no idea where March went. But we thought we'd talk today about the blog post that we put in the newsletter, all about different stillnesses and talking about stillness and meditation and meditating in stillness, things like that. So I thought we would start with a definition of stillness, and I'm going to walk over here, keep them occupied. I forgot my notes. So I thought we'd talk about the stillness and meditation, and then talk about what really is stillness, right? So stillness, according to the dictionary, is a calm, quiet, motionless state. And I guess that's a pretty decent description, but I take offense at the part of motionless, right? So stillness isn't motionless. Stillness is not getting the mind completely blank, where you have absolutely zero thoughts. And we were talking about this earlier. Maybe the great gurus could do it. You know, get that place where the mind literally creates no thoughts. But I'm not sure that's at all possible for the regular folk like us, okay? I know it's not for me, and I've been doing this a long time. I'm not sure I've ever achieved that completely blank state. I don't know that I want to. I think I'm not sure what the benefit of that being completely without thought would be. So the other stillness is removing or giving up any of your own traditions or beliefs. And I bring that up because the idea of stillness, of meditation, over the years I've had people say, well, I won't do meditation because I don't want to get my mind completely blank, because that's when the devil can take over, or Satan or evil can take over, or they can, the bad thoughts can get in. And your own traditions and your own beliefs are entirely your own. But if we're talking about getting the mind so completely blank that some darkness can be illuminated, then maybe that's something you talk to a counselor about. Or it may be some anxiety that you have. And meditation can help with that, but I think it would be better to try and do that deep of a meditation with some professional help. That a lot of good therapists now do meditation and lots of different meditation techniques. You were telling me about some. I think that's interesting.
With my therapist, we work with an internal spotlight. So if you see like a dark thought or some anxiety, you just turn the spotlight back inward towards yourself or towards your breath, or something that you can regulate and you feel at ease with.
I think that's I had not heard the spotlight technique till she told me about it. I think that's wonderful. It's a great analogy, So what is stillness then? Okay, so stillness, comes from an Old English word that means the absence of noise or disturbance. And I think that's a much better description for me personally than to say it's an absence of movement. It's the absence of disturbance, I guess, that follows more closely to the yoga idea of what stillness is.
Right.
In the sutras, Patanjali talks about that yoga is the stilling of the mind and the moving away from disturbances of the mind, right? So that doesn't mean awful, evil thoughts. It just means those intrusive things. You're sitting here trying to relax, and all you can think about is the emails that you've got or the work tomorrow.
You get on that treadmill in your brain of all the things that need to be taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. So one of my absolute favorite definitions of stillness. Stillness is an energetic quality of being. Now, for me personally, the energetic quality of being means that there's something dynamic about the stillness. That doesn't mean that you're jumping around like a rabbit. It means that you're actively being still, that you're cultivated stillness in the garden, right? That it's a quality of being that you control or that you can deal with, right? So I had to use my notes. What stillness is and what stillness isn't. And let me just put these down now. I really wanted to make sure I had those quotes right. So I really kind of came to the concept of stillness quite a few years ago when I first read Eric Schiffman's book. And Eric Schiffman, great yogi, and he wrote Moving into Stillness. And gosh, that book came out, I want to say, early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, early 90s. So long before all this, what we now see as this modern yoga culture. So that was really my first introduction into what was stillness. And he described stillness as being a dynamic, a product of being dynamic, a product of yoga, an outcome of your movement, an outcome of what you're trying to achieve. And then there was the idea, and we'll touch briefly on this because I don't want to get too mired up in your particular traditions, but yoga is a spiritual practice. And so, yeah, we look at it in our culture as being all about fitness and core strength and movement, and that's the asana part of it, right? But there's a lot of other parts to yoga. And the spirituality is what we're going for. The idea that in this movement practice that we're doing, we can let go, we can just focus on what we're doing on the mat so that we can kind of let go of the stress and the struggles and the challenges of our day so that we can, at least for the hour we're on the mat, not worry about things or not be concerned constantly, like you said, on that wheel. So in yoga practices, when you really start reading the old sutras and the old teachings, the concept of God comes up quite a bit. That the stilling of the mind allows you to become quiet enough that then you can listen, right? And so one of my absolute favorites is the idea that when you meditate, prayer, when you're praying or meditating, you're going to God. But when you're quiet, you let God come to you, right? All of that distraction, all of that disturbance of the mind interferes with you in your spiritual quest, whatever that might be, whatever your personal tradition is. So, and you know, I'm not going to talk about anything and not bring up breath work, right? So breathing is the same thing. The idea that when you exhale, you go to God. And when you inhale, God comes to you. So it's the same idea, because that breath work for me is a way to become still as well. What were some of the other things we were going to talk about this idea of stillness?
Well, you wanted to talk a little bit more about how you have stillness while you're doing movement.
Yeah, that's a kind of a funky one, isn't it? You're like, how can I be still if I'm moving? And that's because in the West, again, the Sanskrit words don't translate quite as well. A lot of words don't translate well into English. English is a complex language. In our culture, stillness means just sitting still. It means, a teacher yelling at a room full of 6-year-olds, sit down and be still. Well, that never works for starters. But that idea of you must be still. Don't move a muscle, be still. And for a lot of us, that's kind of torture. But that's not what we're talking about when we talk about this kind of stillness. This kind of stillness is the ability to be free from anxiety, free from depression, even if it's only in a moment, free from the negative thought patterns that we all have. We all have them. We don't need to go into what they are, but we've all got that one reoccurring loop of, I'm not, and you fill in the blank. And so those negative thought patterns, right, that can come in no matter what. You know, you're having a really crappy day and you know, I don't know, you hit something with your car and just a little scratch. It's easily buffed out. It's really not a big deal when you come, but in the moment, all you can tell yourself is, how could I be so stupid? What, you know, what did anybody? Those kind of dark, reoccurring thoughts. Those are what we're talking about. Those are the disturbances of the mind that we're trying to move away from. Because that kind of disturbance of the mind is what keeps you from finding your spiritual path, right? From listening. And when we get on the mat and we're moving, really I say mat, but movement for me can be walking in the woods. But when we're in an asana practice in particular, when you're moving, you're focused so deeply on where you're putting your feet, and where you're putting your arms, and what am I feeling in my body? What am I feeling in my breath? How is the breath and the body moving together? That all of those other negative thoughts can't creep in. So it's one way of narrowing the focus, and that was my first introduction to meditation in particular, was the definition that meditation is the focusing of the mind on a single point of focus, right? And that single point of focus might be breath work, might be movement, it might be on a blank corner of your mind. But to me, movement means letting the breath and the body lead you away from those disturbances that the mind can have. And for me, the easiest one to get into is when we're laying on our back, knees are bent, feet wide, and we start to sway the knees. Not only does that allow you to really connect the breath and the movement with the breath leading the movement, but it allows you to just get so still and quiet internally. Your breath is quiet and calm. It's nothing, you're not really breathing on purpose. That's why, you know, the particular breathing techniques, you're just letting the breath have its own day. And the movement follows that. And try it at home sometime. Just lay down, take a deep breath, let it out, and then just start to let the knees fall, right? Side to side, and then let the breath sneak in and lead. I find that if people aren't used to it and we say, let the breath lead, it becomes too much of a stop-start. Inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale, and you lose the flow, right? And so a lot of times you'll hear people talking about getting into the flow, right? Because of vinyasa flow in yoga, you hear that term a lot. But in that flow, in that movement and breath work mishmash together, the brain doesn't have an awful lot of opportunity to put a lot of random thoughts in. And if it does, you're in a nice quiet place that those random thoughts will just go on by and you're not gonna pay them any attention. You're not gonna reach out and grab for those. Matter of fact, it's funny, try and think sometimes, make a list of all the different visualization techniques that I do in Shavasana, and I had forgotten about this one, and it's the fish, right? You're standing there watching water flow by, and on the surface of the water are leaves, and tons of them. They're just everywhere, and there's so many of them, it's almost overwhelming, right? That you're trying to, oh, there's a yellow one, and oh, there's two green ones. So it's almost like you're grabbing at them with your mind, trying to pick out what's your favorite leaf.
Right.
And then you go below the surface a little bit, and it's the occasional stick or log. So there's much fewer of those. And again, you're watching them, but you're really beginning to notice the size and the shape. But you can't really reach out and grab them. They're below the surface of the water. But you might hold your attention on them a little bit longer than you thought you should. And then there's the fish, right? And so you've got one fish that swims by. And the idea is that you can watch the fish, you can pay attention to the fish, but you don't give it attention, and there's a difference between paying it attention and giving attention. You don't go fishing, right? You just let the fish swim, and eventually it's going to go on by, and you're not going to miss it. You're not going to watch for it. You're not going to struggle. You're not going to lean out after it going, where'd it go? You're just going to let that fish swim by. And then you get to a point where you can also let all the sticks float by without trying to reach for one. And then you get to a place where maybe even all of those leaves flow past in a slow dance that is just a blur. There's no particular color, no particular shape. They just go past. And that to me is a different type of meditation that I think is easier for us in our culture that's so busy. Yes. If we can learn to keep our equilibrium when those thoughts come up in meditation, and maybe we can keep our equilibrium when someone cuts us off in traffic. Or when...
Hopefully.
Or maybe when your boss says something is on you about getting something finished, or your spouse has had a really bad day and they open their mouth and a little toady pops out and then not really meant for you. It was just a toady, right? Maybe in those moments, instead of reacting, we can watch it float past, see what it was, and then not react to it. Those are the kinds of disturbances of the mind. And we learn in movement and in breath work how to sit back and watch. Right? So when I say movement, I'm talking about moving in stillness, that when we find that place, and yes, it can happen in warriors, it's a state of being. It's a dynamic, energetic state of being. What that means is when you're moving, your mind is only focused on the movement that you're doing. You're able to let those other thoughts stay out of the way. You're able to focus your awareness on what you're doing. So,
sort of filling your head with the yoga so that there's not much room.
Yeah.
Or filling your head with the breath so that the thoughts can go through, so that they don't crowd it. They can come through, but they don't stay and linger and gnaw like they do sometimes.
Yeah. And even in yoga, some of our yoga thoughts can come in like that too. Is my foot right? Where's my arm supposed to be? Oh crap, I didn't bring a hair, do we? Those types of things can get on us. In particular, those I don't know if I'm doing this right stuff. Let me just put that out there right now, that there's no right or wrong way, period, to do anything. Try and achieve a place of being physically where you're comfortable in the pose and in the movement flow, so that the mind doesn't ask you, are you doing this right? Or the mind doesn't tell you, you should probably not doing this right. So that in that moment, you're so at ease, you're so filled with sukha, that the mind can't bother you with a bunch of other stuff, right? So, what else? It seems like there was something else.
Yes, I think that, I think we covered most of our bases. We talked about stillness and movement, and what movement and stillness is, which is a little bit of a trickier one. Well, what we didn't talk about is how, if you get antsy, what you can do to help with that.
Oh, so if you are trying to do some of the more, if you're laying in Shavasana, okay? So let's do that one, because we do Shavasana quite a bit. So one of the things you can do in Shavasana, and I see it all the time, you forget I'm up here watching, and you see somebody's foot going, or fiddling with the blanket, or fiddling with their clothes. And usually that happens in 10, 15 seconds, and then people quiet down. But you'll see some people laying there doing their watch, right? So some of the things you can do to promote that stillness when you're trying to be still. One, turn this off. Turn your phone off and turn this off, right? Because this will wake you up at night. It's going to take you out of a quiet place. If it's a text you don't need to see right now, it's going to fire you up. Turn this off, right? Don't come to class again. If you can't figure out how to turn it off, leave it outside. Leave it in your purse. And the same with your phone or anything else. If you're at home and you're doing your workout on your PC or on your whatever device you have, put on Do Not Disturb so that you don't get messages and you don't get phone calls, because that's the first line of defense. That's the first thing that's going to throw you off, right? And the second thing is maybe if you're antsy, I just can't get comfortable. Do your best to be as comfortable as you can, as long as you're not in pain. Sit with it for a second. Just get really still for 10 seconds. Count. 1 Mississippi, 2. 1 Shavasana, 2 Shavasana, 3 Shavasana, right? And see if you can't be still for 10 seconds. And physically at ease. And if you're not in pain at that point, see if you can come back to simply watching your breath. Just watch the rise and fall of it, right? Maybe feel something. Feel the back of your head on a blanket. Not in an uncomfortable way, just feel it. If you've got your knees bent, feel your feet on the floor, right? And then slowly come away from those sensations. It's called pratyahara. It's called the withdrawing of senses. So little by little, come away from that idea of feeling the body. First, we have to feel it. Then we have to come away from it. And see if you can't find a place, and then just watch the breath. And then watch the breath from further and further away. So that you'll find a place where you just drift. And it's not easy. I say that like it's the simplest thing in the world to do. And some days it'll click. You'll just lay down, pull that blanket up, and you're gone. You're in that space, right? You're in that head zone. Some days it's not that easy. If you need to, lay there in Shavasana, knees bent, and slowly let those knees go side to side. As long as you're not creating a disturbance to anybody around you, right? If the class isn't too big, you can always just move so slowly. Imagine that I'm going to move slowly, but I'm not going to create any wake, right? So if you're in water and you're a boat, you're going to leave wake. The idea here is just not to leave wake in the atmosphere around you, right? The air and the dynamics, the energy. So maybe move that slowly. For me, I will sit very quietly and I'll just do hands. Yeah, right? Instead of the knees, I'll just do hands. And then eventually they fall and the mind goes quiet. So it doesn't go completely quiet, but I get to a place where whatever the mind is talking about's over there, and I don't listen to it. Right. But those are just some of the techniques. In particular, this is a biggie. This is going to disturb you big time, even just the wearing of it. Somebody asked me the other day, because I do Reiki, right? So I'm a Reiki practitioner. I never, ever wear this when I'm doing Reiki. Just having it, because you move your arm and it lights up, right? So just having it on pulls my attention away from what I'm doing. So I don't even wear it tucked in the drawer or something. So to me, that's a biggie. If you're at home and you're trying to get quiet and can't, put some of your favorite music on. I don't care if it's rock and roll or hip hop, but it might be quiet classical. It might be a nice jazzy thing going on, but it's whatever's going to hold your awareness and attention and allow the mind to not worry about things, right? But in Shavasana, the basic techniques are feel the body. Feel your feet, feel the back of the head, feel whatever's going on in your skin. Do you feel your blanket? And then begin to move away from those sensations, right? Just kind of let them get further and further away from your awareness.
Yeah.
Pratyahara.
See if you can feel your heart. See if you can take the deep breaths and that kind of thing. You know, are your eyes squinty? Are they relaxed? That kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, and I teach most of my my Shavasana is that way. I lead you through a little bit of, okay, let's let the back of the eyes soften, sort of thing. But you can tell yourself to do those things. You can go, okay, take a deep breath, and I'm gonna let my arms go. It's going to be heavy. I might have to do that 10 times, and that's okay. It doesn't happen once, right? You might have to tell yourself 2 or 3 times, relax your arms. Especially if you're all keyed up.
Yes.
You know, if you're a person that carries tension in your shoulders, right? And you're gonna lay there and you're gonna, okay, right? And then you're gonna come right back. Because it's habitual, right? Some of these, you're like, I'm not even tense. I'm not at work anymore. Why can't I relax my shoulders? Because your shoulders assume that's your natural state of being.
Yeah.
My hips do the same thing.
It's my jaws, I'm a clincher.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
That's why people don't even realize that they do that in their sleep. Some people have to wear the teeth guards because they clench their jaws so hard in their sleep. So that's habitual. That is could be a trauma response, any of that. You know, even you'll see people laying in Shavasana and they'll have their hands in fists, right? And you're just like, my goodness, you poor babies. I just want to walk over. And I used to do that. I used to do little hand massages. I gotta get back to that stuff. People don't care. Do you guys care anymore if we touch again? So what else? I think that's got it.
I think that's all we talked about, yeah.
If you've got any questions about stillness or about meditation in particular, feel free to reach out and let me know what you think.
And there are some meditations on YouTube.
Yeah, I do have some meditations during the shutdown in particular. I recorded quite a few. Just your basic Shavasana stuff. So if you're ever, you know, wanting to sit and not able to get what you need, then go ahead and try those on YouTube.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in class. Bye-bye.